Hey guys, how are you? We'll be joining in sometime. We'll wait for more people to join in.
Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, hey Vyom, hey Mike, hey Alpha. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
You're like, uh, Vyom, I guess we can't hear you. I guess I'll just wait. I guess there's some mic issue with Vyom.
I'm really sad that you can't fully use Twitter Spaces on your desktop.
Yeah, just have to join from like mobile. I don't know.
I I hope they fix that soon, or at least you can't talk.
Yep. At least you can listen there.
Hello? Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay, I was having some issues with that. Okay. Hey everyone, yeah, nice to have you here, man. Hey Madhur, hey Mike, how you doing, man?
Yeah, thanks for having us. I mean, I'm just wrapping up ETH Prague here. It was definitely a very good event. Lots of core Ethereum people here, so it's cool.
Oh, cool, man. Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay. Let's like wait for a few more minutes for people to join in. Have we posted an announcement in the Discord and stuff? Let's give people a few more minutes to join. What time is it? Where you're at, Alpha?
It's 10 a.m. right now.
Oh, okay, cool. Over here it is 1:30 in the afternoon. I think it's pretty early where you're in Mother, right?
Yeah. 4 a.m.
Oh yeah, Mother is running it at
The
4 a.m. It's crazy. Ah, shit. Okay. Oh, I think yeah. I can we can like can start talking about stuff. Okay. So today is kind of the okay. I'm being told that my voice is a little bit low. So yeah. Let's start again. Yeah. So today, like,
It seems to be fine.
it's fine.
Yep, yeah, it's
Ah,
fine.
okay, okay. Then we can start. Yeah. So, like, just for people on the board, Mike, Alpha, would you like to introduce yourself and what do you do?
Yeah, so I come from a Web 2 background. I've been building stuff in Web 2 for 6 years, mostly around like scalable like data streams and searchability of data and stuff like that. And yeah, the thing that we're working on currently is a decentralized on-chain limit order book that's actually scalable and like gas feasible, as like yeah all the other solutions like Maker OTC, 1-inch limit order protocol, they've never been able to do aggregated limit orders. So this is something that we've been able to achieve. Um, and yeah, like we pretty much got into it by first trying to do an off-chain order book. So basically, like having the liquidity providers be off-chain, so that you didn't have to pay a lot of gas for that, and then having the swappers be on-chain, and then eventually we just work towards having a fully on-chain limit order book. And yeah, it's really cool. I think there's a lot of cool things that we get done with it. It's better for illiquid pairs, because on an AMM, you can have a lot of price misprediction because you're always selling at the market price. So yeah, what we built like works for volatile pairs, where you probably have to rebalance your position slash like really smart people do flash LPs or just in time liquidity anyways to collect those fees. And yeah, also you collect instant fees from it. So as a market maker, since you're marked based on a counter at a specific price, you actually collect instant fees. So your gas is kind of subsidized. Obviously, on like something like Polygon, you're talking about like 1 or 2 cents per transaction versus like actually Ethereum is very cheap right now. I don't know if anybody's realized that. It's like $1 to send ETH right now. It's like $3 or $4 to swap on Uniswap. But yeah, we're looking to launch this in August. Uh, that's our current goal right now. So we're going through all the typical stuff. How do we get the funding, audits, and the real challenge for me right now, kind of like building out this product, is that our backend engineer wants to write the whole thing mule. And so like actually at ETH Prague, I started working on like a Rust style macro system that basically we could have like Lego pieces of code. Like you could have the Solidity version defined next to the Yule version, and like yeah, it'd be a lot easier to um, decide whether the functionality is the exact same or not. But yeah, that's what we're building, and we think it enables um, people to launch tokens without having to worry about like a liquidity pool or anything like that. Um, it just it does exactly what it says. An AMM is not an exact science, unfortunately. So you kind of to get market makers red pilled on DeFi, you need something that actually behaves like an order book. And actually, just I ran into Wintermute guys yesterday, and I asked them like, what's the best case scenario maker rebate that Binance gives, and apparently it's 0.01%. So just imagine like market makers were able to get 5 times the rebate in DeFi. So yeah, that's what we're building. We think it'll be interesting for market makers, and traders can just place a limit order on chain and forget about it, go to sleep, let the Ethereum network do the rest.
That's pretty cool. Okay, got that. Um, yeah, like order books. Like have like several points to kind of ask you questions around that. So like, me and Madhur have also been kind of like thinking about order books and studying about that. Obviously, like you guys have a lot of more experience in that area. Uh, but like, what do you think are like, why do an off-chain order book versus like why do an on-chain order book? Like, I think you covered a little bit around
Mhm.
that, but like, yeah, could you explain? How do you explain this to a person, kind of?
Yeah, it actually, there is definitely value in having an off-chain order book. And the reason is that you can do a signed message, which is going to get thrown in off-chain order book. So like the placing of the orders is free, right? Because you don't have to store any data on-chain. But of course, the trade-off being you lose all the properties of the blockchain. So then you kind of end up in this middle road where is it a centralized exchange? Because if I want a centralized exchange, then why wouldn't I just go to a centralized exchange that has deeper liquidity? So I think the reason that, just in my opinion, that off-chain order books haven't really been the selling point is that it's basically a centralized exchange, but yeah, it doesn't have as much liquidity. So an on-chain order book, you have a permissionless system, right? Just like you do with any blockchain, you have a permissionless system. Other apps can connect to it as well. The thing about a centralized exchange or an off-chain order book is nothing on-chain can connect to it, right? So you lose the properties of a blockchain, of a permissionless walled garden when you go off-chain. And that's not to say like everything should be done on-chain, but if you want to have the ability to connect into the ecosystem on that network, then probably you want to do it on chain, is my opinion. So yeah, I think, well, if you have an on chain order book, then you can settle trades between off chain order books, right? You can connect across other off chain order books. But I know there's also like Cow Protocol, which, you know, they look at other um, you know, they look across liquidity sources to find the best liquidity source. Is,
Yeah.
you know, someone, I was talking to a guy from Wintermute yesterday, and he said that the solvers can actually prioritize their own trades. Apparently, if you so like any like the anything that is off chain, it's ultimately moving a problem somewhere else, right? So um, it's not as if you need a censorship resistant order book, though that is a nice thing to have. I think the real value is the permissionlessness and the connectivity to other apps, other like contracts that are deployed.
Got it. Okay. So what you're basically telling me is that like the trade-off between on-chain order books and an off-chain order book is like between let's say scalability versus like composability and permissionless, right? So on-chain order books, they are like super composable with everything, that every protocol that exists on the chain, versus like if you go an off-chain order book, nothing is composable. You are kind of like centralized, and it's not permissionless. That's the thing. So like I'm just like curious how you like, okay, so just like discussing some of the on-chain order book designs, right? So like obviously right now the gas fees are low, but like 0x API, the original kind of order book protocol that they built, and we had people doing stuff uh, like as you mentioned, like the 1 inch order book system. Then CowSwap is there doing off chain, and DYDX obviously like famously as the biggest off chain order book system. So like I'm just like curious how you like view this landscape. So like in the off chain world, like let's talk about like CowSwap versus DYDX. Like what do you think? Like what's the scalability?
So
Yeah.
one thing that's unique to DYDX is that they have their own network
Yeah.
for this, right? Like they have their own Starkware subnet, and that enables them to be resistant to spam attacks on a network. So if you're on Polygon and Polygon's getting spammed because of some NFT launch or whatever, your network is not interrupted. So like I said, then of course you lose the connectivity. You're relying on bridges at that point. Not to say like whether those bridges are good or not, but you're relying on bridges to connect to your network. So it's kind of an extra hoop to jump through. So the design with CowSwap is that you have these solvers. So instead of the I guess the miners being the arbitrators of the transaction ordering, and what liquidity source is chosen, you now have the solvers that are deciding that. So it makes the system, it's basically free. You can create an order for free, then your transaction is ordered in this off-chain system. I think ultimately it's just moving the problem somewhere else, and you're looking at on-chain liquidity sources.
Right. Yeah. So like,
aren't those auctions public? Aren't those auctions publicly known? And how do I guess I would say, is there a way that I can know how much gas the drive? So there's the solvers that say, here's the best liquidity source for this auction. And then there's the drivers, which actually send the transaction on chain to settle it, right? And do the ERC20 transfers and all that stuff. I would just want to know, is there a way that I can know how much gas that the driver, which is going to do the on-chain transaction, is there a way that I can know how much gas that is going to use? And if I can, then I can front run it.
Yep.
I don't know that. I legitimately don't know the answer to that question, but this is a problem that Gelato has currently, and it's sort of like the bear case for Gelato is that Gelato has it defined in a smart contract how much gas is going to be spent. So then basically anybody, even if you submit the Gelato transaction to a private mempool, can still know how much gas what the gas price Gelato is going to get. So does that kind of answer your question? Like, I just think ultimately it's moving the problem somewhere else. And if you want something that's fast and cheap, and you can do high frequency trades, I still think that the centralized exchange is the best option. You have deeper liquidity there. So for me, just my opinion, I think in order to move the needle, because I don't think AMMs are moving the needle to get the liquidity and the market makers wanting to do actions on chain. I just think you need a completely different design to attract the market makers. I don't think basically now you're saying, oh, well, the market makers can order the transactions off chain. I'll be very transparent. Like, I don't understand exactly how protocol orders transactions and makes sure that everything's done fairly, other than time ordering the auctions and all that stuff. That I'm not entirely sure of, like how the solvers go about ordering the transactions or the driver. That component is the driver component is centralized currently, and it requires an effort to decentralize something. So basically, in my just trying to evaluate it from a business model perspective, you have to count on the incentives of the cloud protocol / like the drivers and all that stuff. You have to count on those incentives being worthwhile for people to want to help decentralize the driver and all of this stuff,
Yep.
it requires another network and another set of incentives. And basically, just like Chainlink or the Graph or whatever, off-chain sort of system that has a token behind it, you have to create a lot of value there. So that's the ultimate challenge that I see there. And like, I'm certainly not saying that they can't achieve that.
Yeah.
I do think there are still challenges for them, and even for current networks, right? Even for the Graph, there's a lot of challenges to have people create all this high value data that people can't get anywhere else. So yeah, it's to build out your own infrastructure system and incentivize that, I think is proving to be more and more difficult over time.
I agree. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like this.
That's a really long answer.
Yeah. I'm just trying to like I have like various points. Okay, so first thing, like, I'll start with DYDX, right? So like Starkware ecosystem, especially you at StarkX, what DYDX especially uses. Like we've been kind of studying that for a while now, and I mean, like the DYDX is like an unfair comparison to every other protocol that's currently live right now, because like it's like very different and it's like such a unique custom built solution. Like if I wanted to like use StarkX today, it's not an easy integration to make, whether it be from a technical standpoint or from the integration standpoint, or like yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. But like I mean, but I also see the plus points of that. So if you're like building a scalable solution which works in a similar way that DYDX and StarkX have done that, it's very unfair. But like if you're building a protocol, you want there to be an unfair advantage, I guess. So I like that part of the thing. Yeah, but I agree. DYDX is like not composable with anything. It's pretty much a closed source, closed circuit kind of system. Uh, I read the like recent blog where they announced that they are trying to decentralize the like currently centralized order book system, but I have no idea how they're going to do that. And yeah, that's one thing. Looking at like the cow swap, I think I completely agree with the what you like your breakdown. The crypto economic incentives currently for solvers to kind of do ordering, and like how do they order? I don't know how do they order. I mean, like a simple idea, like maybe they could have like just embed the timestamp kind of thing in the signed message or something. That's how they order. But yeah, like I don't know how to just like the crypto economic incentives currently might not be there. Like solver could, as you said, like prioritize his own order above everyone else's and get that done, plus front running stuff that's all.
Yeah, I don't understand the technicals behind that, but this is what a market maker told me and why they were interested in running a solver, right? Because if there was no financial incentive to run a solver, then there would be no incentive to decentralize the network of solvers. And it you can go and look at, they have a D analytics dashboard. Like the top 5 solvers make a majority of the returns from the cow token. And the returns are paid out in the cow token, which unfortunately it will sort of end up in a similar model, in my opinion, as something like Chainlink, where basically you're paying people to do something. Nobody's spending gas, so that's the nice part about it. I mean, it spends energy, I guess, but yeah, you're paying people to do something, and then like I guess what I would ask out of that incentive system is, what's the incentive for me to own the cow token? Wouldn't it just be sort of paying out yields? I
Yeah.
guess I'm not really sure why I would own or want to buy the. Why am I a buyer of the cow token?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, token design and aligning incentives is a very tall order, I guess. I like most protocols kind of suffer from. Even like if I were to say the optimism token, right? what's the use of optimism token. I also read your thread on valueless governance token that you read. I think I remember just now doing that. So aligning incentives is a tough task because like you don't know before you go live, you don't really know what's the why are people acting the way they are acting, how are they going to use your protocol, and are the incentive that you have in mind, are they going to be economically feasible in the long term? That's a hard kind of thing to predict in advance of the token launch, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so just to kind of refocus the conversation, I guess we just launched and we just got right down to order books. I want to like summarize what's been going on. Yeah, I just want to like for everyone else in the market, in the call, like, I just want to summarize the like what's been happening in the crypto space. So, like yeah, easiest thing to do is like everything is in red, everything is down, pricing to it. So like yeah, everyone is crying on Twitter, and we're truly in a bear market. ETH has broken like multiple resistances downwards. 1440 was a big resistance. Yeah.
Wow.
Apart from that, like Jeb Havnani and the Rari team, their departure from the Fey and the tribe ecosystem. And I was reading his the forum post that he wrote, which was like very like yeah, that's like another topic of conversation I would like to bring up. And the third thing is like the Celsius bank run. I just woke up today and just like everyone is talking about Celsius kind of bank run which happened. They are pausing withdrawals and
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen there. So yeah, like these three metrics. So Mother, like I wanna like start with you. Uh, yeah, like what are your thoughts around this, and how can people like us, like Alpha, me and you, like, we're all builders in the space, right? Normally, like I just kind of tune out the pricing nonsense, but like it can be hard in a prolonged kind of system. Although it's not our first bear market, like we've been around for the last one, I believe we'll be around for the next one as well. But yeah, Mother, like, what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, I guess all the events, I guess, that you outlined are connected. I mean, like the Celsius bank run thing, like the people step, like the Jay Bhavnani building in the beer market, and I guess even like ETH falling. I guess a lot of people are like people are just like force selling, like, or maybe like a market maker are just like selling ETH right now to buy it at later prices. But I guess like the for us builders, we don't care. Like we are in for the long term, anyways. Like we're just building. I mean, that's from my side. What do you think, Alpha? Like, do you care about the price? I don't think none of us cares about prices, and like
No, I mean,
we just
somebody
accumulate.
pitched somebody pitched to me yesterday the idea of a bear market insurance fund. So like while the bull market's going on, you stick your funds in the bear market insurance fund, and then like you're not able to pull those funds out until the Oracle price goes below some level. I thought that was really hilarious. But ultimately, what people should know is that this is how emerging markets work. So like just watch like the next bear market, or sorry, the next bull market. Um, Amazon's now accepting crypto. PayPal's now accepting crypto. And they have a financial incentive to pump it as well. So then market gets overheated, from the speculation side, and then it's then what you're going to have is you're going to have it tip because it tipped over to one side way too far. You're going to have it tip over to the other side way too far, likely, and ultimately, uh, people pump it up on the way up, and then you think everything's going to change tomorrow. And when you're thinking that, it does mean something. It means that you're when you're so convinced that everything is real, and you consider yourself a relatively intelligent person, it probably means that like everything's just not meant to go up forever. So like basically, I'm sitting there in like March. I'm looking at the monthly. Like I strongly recommend looking at the monthly chart and like having four green candles going straight up is should be a very scary thing because you're always going to retest going back down to increase confidence that yes, this is the price, right? So um, this is just how it works, and everybody's gonna like right now, everybody's gonna beat it down uh, because everybody wants to get cheaper prices.
So
Yeah.
do,
So
this is
I also have a
capitulation.
theory too, and maybe it's far fetched, maybe it's not. Um, I have a theory that like if I'm somebody who knows about, I guess maybe it doesn't really make sense, but like all of these exploits are coming now. Like all these things are unraveling now, right? When liquidity is drying up and um, the normal profits that people would be making in the bull market are not there. Um, that's when we seem to get these unravelings. Uh, yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Like people are now like, hey, well, I can't actually buy the token and number go up. Like I need to actually find some exploit so that I can still be profitable. But one thing I do want to say, and like something that we're working on, like realizing, is like basically no matter what direction the market goes, your product thing should be able to have some functionality that works in both directions. Like if you're designing something in DeFi, you shouldn't design something that only works in a bull market. I mean, that's fine. Like you might be able to reap something from that. I'm sure you will, but it just, there's obviously going to be models, incentive systems that don't work in a bear market. Um, like, for example, you say, okay, my service is going to cost 1,000 of my tokens, right? It works in a bull market because everybody's making money. But then when the token starts dipping, people start losing value. And um, there is a saying that the uh, the euphoria associated with the price going up is the magnitude of the good feeling you have when number go up is less than the magnitude of when something goes down, like how bad you feel when something goes down.
Yeah.
So it's like unfortunately a stain that if we depending on how we design the systems that we will leave on our users, and they'll remember that. So like I can't say if anything like somebody asked me about Olympus or like Frax yesterday, and like I won't say and I can't say whether those things will work. But I think ultimately you have to create intrinsic value and intrinsic yield. That's like sort of the base layer, right? Like everybody talks about like curve wars, curve emissions, um, yada yada. Like I believe that's where the yield is, right? Like you have to just look at DeFi. In my opinion, is ultimately it's yield.
True. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, lots of people are like just farming yields. I like majority of the retail at this moment. Even like the jab of Nani in his like the recent kind of like the forum post. He was basically talking about like how most protocols have no path of seeing real adoption beyond the 10,000 people on crypto Twitter who are like mostly farming their tokens and farming for yield. When the yield goes away, the users go away, and like the like it's like if we look at like the active users on Dune Analytics for like any of the DeFi protocols, like 10,000 is like a very good benchmark. Like very few projects kind of break that barrier, and like even DYDX has kind of like many projects have like most projects don't break that barrier, right? And like even at their peak, it's kind of hard thing to do. So like, do you think there's an echo chamber effect within DeFi? like we are part of that. So like, do you think there's an echo chamber effect where people are just listening to other DeFi builders and the intrinsic value, as you mentioned, like is getting lost somewhere? People aren't thinking about creating value for retail, stuff like that.
By the way, just to add, like in bear market, apart from stable yield, like why would like even if some protocol is like providing some yield on any kind of token, it won't make sense because like token is falling anyway. Like why would people just like care about yield in falling market unless it's stable yield?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like another thing, right? How do you create like yeah, yield
Unless
farming for your own
well,
tokens just won't work in market. Yeah.
unless it's solving a problem, or unless like we are using some protocol for lending or option, or actually using it won't make sense, right?
Okay, I guess like what we are trying to ask is like what's the path toward creating intrinsic value, or what's the path towards creating real adoption beyond the like just the crypto Twitter, right? And like this can be hard to do because like although the numbers for crypto Twitter people are slow, but they are like probably whales. They bring money when but not user stats. So how do you kind of get the retail adoption there, especially in a bear market, which can be yeah.
like like somebody was asking me yesterday because they're working on like a bug bounty system, and they were uh asking me about like basically how to scale a subscription service, right? So if you think very simply about something like Spotify, right? Um,
Yeah.
is it such that the more people that subscribe to Spotify, that the price of the subscription goes up? And the answer would be no. So then, like, my thinking is basically like, how do we design services that can scale to a large number of people, uh, so that they can access those services and not have those services be really expensive? You know, like basically, if you like imagine that you paid $1,000 for something, or $10,000, or 100,000, whatever, and then somebody gets that same thing 6 months later for, you know, 1 or 10% of the price that you paid. How would you feel?
I mean, yeah, I would like feel pretty bad, I
You
guess.
feel
Yeah.
stupid. You feel really.
Yeah.
So that's just what I think. As I think we have to design systems that, at least at the start, and I mean at the start, that don't become increasingly expensive to use and become a part of. So, like, one big challenge for this, right, is governance. For me to take part in governance and have a sizable impact as the price of the governance token goes up is going to be more difficult. So, you know, this is just one of the things that I'm highlighting where, as the market grows, the barrier to entry becomes more. And I'm not saying that I have the solution for those things, but I think those are the things to think about, and I think those are the problems to try and solve, so that when the market does get back to the size that it was, just a year ago, that we don't have those same growing pains. So I think the best thing to do now, like if you're just, like developing and building stuff by yourself, I think it's to try to talk with other people to figure out what things you can build that are of value that you can receive a grant for, right? Um, and I think there's a lot of things that you'll find will align with like what you're interested in, that you can uh, get a grant. Actually, one of the guys at East Prague here, I'll plug them for a second. They built a website where you can search up grants. It's called grantor.app, GRANTR.app, and you can go there and you can search up grants based on different tags. So, um, yeah, that I just pulled it up. That I recommend going if you're just a solo builder. And otherwise, I think that there's plenty of capital in the space. And I think you build some service that can scale to a large number of users. Again, think with like the Spotify model of right, like it should be $10. Like you're marked to $10 for everybody because that's what they pay their bills in. And basically, you can acquire users, for $5 a month or $10 a month for your service, and that will help you continue to build stuff. Like I don't know if you have something like blockchain or something like that. Just, but I think these are the kinds of services that will last the test of time. The ones that you don't have to sell to people because you're going to collect you're just holding the token and like you're going to collect a profit. Like that's just my opinion. Like I could totally be wrong about that. I just am looking at what people's current comfort level is in terms of paying for a service. And yeah, that is
Yeah, yeah.
that's what I
And
think.
yeah, okay, let me. I love that indie hacker mentality, right? If you're a solo builder, like, I mean, yeah, the path you outlined, like, hunt for grants, build something that's like actually useful, get some users, and yeah, like, even like, so we recently set up a research team here at Syndr, and like, basically, the first project they kind of like got started with was like they were like building a cross chain messaging aggregator. So like now they have like multiple messaging systems, and we just like, if you're a protocol like Sushi Swap, you have to pick one, right? You can either integrate with, like, let's say, Wormhole, or you can integrate with Solana, you can integrate with Rocket. So like you have to pick one, right? So the first project that they started with was aggregator. So like build a kind of universal interfacing system that allows you to send messages and just abstracts away the protocol which is actually doing the sending thing, right? So, and like initially we were thinking about what to kind of do with it. So like basically what we ended up doing was like putting it out as a Gitcoin grant. I'm not sure if it got approved because we got late or something, but I agree with that, right? So building stuff, getting grants, and it's a very good test of what you're building. Is it actually useful? If you don't get any users, I mean, like, yeah, like that kind of that's like the market is the ultimate equalizer. It kind of like brings you down to earth, and I agree with that. Um, Plus, like, Madhur and me, like, we're constantly kind of thinking about how do you define, right, as an engineer, like, we like numbers, right? How do you define what you're building? Is it really a game changer, right? So I mean, we happened upon this formula, I think, like it by like some person, I don't remember if it was Elon or something. Like basically he said, the like, how do you define if a project is useful, is like, first is like the number of people that you're going to affect, the number of people that who are going to be affected by the product, multiplied by how much better is your product than the current state of the art, right? So like that's the utility delta there. So I think like that's a very good way to kind of think about if the product that you're building, how big is it going to be, right? So yeah, definitely. Okay, so I want to talk about the Celsius bank run. So first of all, I felt like, did you have money in Celsius? And are you, like, if you did, are you now able to withdraw it?
I have never used Celsius Network.
I mean, yeah, like
You know
you
what?
were.
I actually saw there's this guy, I think his name is Mike Alfred. He was some guy on like CNBC or something like that. He was saying that Celsius was the next Luna, and apparently he was right,
Yeah.
like a month ago, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's not the next Luna. Luna has like a completely different mechanics there, but like the comparison is apt. So like we have been internally kind of like tracking the Celsius and the like they are one of the biggest kind of like I would say like participants who have been affected by the ETH and ST ETH, kind of the depegging which happened over the last
Mhm.
like 7-10 days, and so we've been tracking it related to that. But I just woke up today and like they've paused it withdrawals. So okay, so like let me pose you this question, right? Let's say you're a DeFi protocol, like you're building a permissionless kind of like thing, right? So in what cases are is it okay to kind of like pause user activity, like disable withdrawals, disable deposits? Madhur, why don't you like? What are your thoughts around that? I want to start with you first.
I mean, like for DeFi protocol, it won't make sense like to stop withdrawals. I mean, unless like they're hacked and like, I mean, like
That's what I'm saying, right? They do get stopped whenever a protocol is hacked, right? And it's kind of an open secret that like protocols kind of definitely build in these safeguards. Like most protocols, they have a pause functionality, which can pause their system. Best in the like almost all protocols kind of do this because like biggest reason is to guard against kind of the protocol exploit risk. But like can this functionality and should this functionality be used to kind of account for a black swan event, right? So something like which happened to Celsius, the liquidity is an issue or something like that.
I mean, like the it won't bring any advantage apart from like it won't like put Celsius into like insolvency like right now. It will just delay it. I mean, I don't think like it's solving problem for them. I mean, they still have like certain loans that they have to cover, like their situation, or like they have something on Aave. Like they are selling ETH, they are selling ETH to FTX, like they are selling in open market. Like it doesn't solve the problem, I guess. It just creates more panic among like the people who are holding money inside Celsius. They will just do another stuff. I guess that's what I believe. It's just like
Yeah, like
delayed response. Like if you just
yeah,
stop
yeah.
withdraw, like you just get
Okay.
more time around it. That's the thing.
I mean, okay, like there's a like just to be the devil's advocate, there's a counterpoint here, right? So, like coming back to the Luna crash, right? So, just before Luna crash happened, there were like couple of things that were about to happen to the system, which would have made it impossible for the death spiral to kick in, right? First was the creation of the four pool on curve with Frax, right? So if like UST was able to create a four pool on Frax with so like Frax AMO could like kick in like potentially unlimited liquidity to that pool. Second is like the BTC kind of redemption system, right? So the reserve fund that they had built up using BTC and AVAX and all these other altcoins. If you were able to redeem UST for that instead of Luna, so like these two things, like what I kind of know about on Twitter and like learning about that, like these two things were about to happen very soon, just before the crash happened, right? Which would have potentially kind of like made it invalid. So like imagine a world where like the Terra Foundation decided to kind of like pause the redemption mechanism, made those two implementation, launched the four pool, upgraded the redemption mechanism to use other alt reserve altcoins. In such a scenario, it might have been like it might like the attacker might have like failed to kill like kick in the death spiral, right? So like what do you say to that, right? So in some cases, just like withdrawing, like just like delaying is might be good enough. I mean, in some cases, I guess.
I mean, we can say that like for some case it might be true, but like I guess like the probability of that case specifically happening and people all reacting the same way, even like if they are trying to do something good, even they are trying to like save people from the situation. Like people might not behave in a way that they want people to behave. They just might behave in some like maybe they might dry up liquidity from the four pool as well. You know, if like four pool is bringing like a lot more returns.
Okay, got it. Alpha, what are your thoughts on this matter?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the scariest outcome would have been Terra continuing as it was. But I mean, I think ultimately if you have more liquidity behind something like that, that's ultimately just backed by a valueless collateral token, or that's like, pegged to the network, and you don't have like a liquidation mechanism or anything. I mean, it just is crazy to me. I mean, I always cite the case of Iron Finance, which was a Frax fork on Polygon, and they were 75% backed by USDC that was sitting in an Aave market collecting yield, and even they got off peg and failed. Now, and actually, the stablecoin actually came back. They actually had a floor, whereas Terra UST did not have a floor. So people were just redeeming. But anytime that you're holding, UST, that will hurt your ability to redeem Luna, and just it's just ultimately a liquidity thing. It just becomes very inefficient once the price drops below 90 cents. It's somewhere in the low 90 cents, because like in the low 90 cents, it's about a 10% move to go back to $1. And then if you get below that, if you get like 90 cents and below, then it's more than 10% to get back there, right? So it's a greater move back up in price that you have to do versus the price moving down. And then you have to fight against increasing amounts of resistance going back up. So it just becomes super inefficient, and it just, you just don't have liquidity to tap into. You can't beat the liquidity of the US dollar, so ultimately that's the tricky piece. And so, like those systems could work in a very, very liquid scenario, but I think ultimately what algo stablecoins like Luna and UST do is they kind of cheat the system. They're kind of like, before we have all this liquidity and real use case and adoption, we're just going to say it's $1. And we're going to try our best with all the market makers and everything to eat up that arbitrage and keep it up to $1. So, but you just don't have the demand supply dynamics there to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So I think a slow transition is actually a better approach. So like imagine that, and Frax is under collateralized too, as far as I don't know an exact mechanism, but if you really want to build this over time and you're serious about it, start with a high percentage of collateralization backed by USDC or USDT or whatever stablecoin you want, and then just tick down the collateralization over time and see how that affects things. So I think it's a very careful and calculated approach versus just trying to go all in on something and make it work. And yeah, it is scary to think that Luna UST like almost worked, but it just ultimately adding more liquidity that would just have increased the cost of the attack. If at any point there was an opportunity to, if you know that somebody's holding something for a specific reason, and you can make them arrive at that scenario to dump that Bitcoin. So there's the two things, right? Like you highlighted the for pool, and then also the Bitcoin, people knowing that they were holding the Bitcoin reserves. And basically, if you can force somebody to dump the Bitcoin, it's going to dump the entire market.
Yeah.
Because Bitcoin is strongly correlated to the rest of the market because of the market share that it has. And so if you can get them to dump Bitcoin, you can dump the whole market. And then, there's if you know that that's going to happen because you're going to force that hand, then there's definitely profit to be made there. So I think that's the really tricky part is, you have all this information that's public, right? And then expecting somebody to not act on that. Like for sure people will. Like this is how
Yeah.
markets work.
plenty of smart people as well. Yeah, I'll kind of figure that out. Okay, okay, but like I want to come back to the original question, right? As a DeFi builder, like when do you think, like, is it okay for a DeFi protocol to kind of like pause withdrawals or pause some sort of critical system functionality, uh, like not because you've been exploited by a hack or something, but just because you think there's like some sort of like market economics which could lead to a lack of liquidity or loss of like use of funds. Do you think in that scenario is it okay for DeFi for protocols and builders to kind of exercise that level of centralized control? Uh, like you could do it, you could like okay, so you could do it via governance, like passing a vote, but sometimes like that process is kind of like there's like delays built into that protocol for the governance for safety. But do you think is it like okay for protocols to do that, and when is it okay?
I think that's a very difficult question because it gets
Yeah.
into the subjective morality, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so like one thing that comes to mind is like OKEX. Apparently, when the Luna crash was happening, they liquidated all the funds for all the users, UST and Luna. I believe. I believe. Um, you'll have to fact check me on that. But they did something to protect their users, knowing that this death spiral was happening, and probably the people that are holding those assets expect them to be valuable. So, um, I mean, there are definitely cases where that centralized actor can act in an adversarial way, where they directly, have a positive impact on the users in that like cases like that. Um, is it okay to pause withdrawals? I don't think so. I think ultimately that's they're basically what I understand is that just based on their actions, is that probably their business model is going to break down if all those users withdraw all of those funds. So, and basically the way that they can spin it is to say, well, we want you to get your yield and we want you to get this, and we don't want you to sell into, a downward pressure. But ultimately, if they're selling down into staked ETH, the users, that would probably be bad for them and just continue this sort of unwinding. So, I mean, I just guess that this is a sort of well, it's sort of a Robin Hood case, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, um, but like, if you understand what actually happened there, it's kind of interesting. Like, apparently, the clearinghouse has just asked them to put up more collateral than they normally would. Like, I don't really understand how that whole situation makes sense. But I just think that the risks for them of people being able to withdraw that are probably very high, as they assume that if they want to withdraw their staked ETH and dump it on the market and flip it to real ETH, then it spells bad news for them and for their whole business model. So I think it's just a protection of their personal interests, and whether those interests are aligned with the users is really, I don't think anybody can say at this point in time, because you just don't know, right? Okay, somebody withdraws, sells it at some crazy low market price. Um, I don't know. Did you see that the price of ETH USDC on UniV3 dumped to like $800?
Yeah, it was a maker vault that got liquidated. Like it had like 64,000
Right,
ETH or something. Yeah.
right. And basically, I've been recognizing this, that basically, so I've been digging a lot into Uni V2 and V3, and just I've been kind of very surprised because basically, what happens is that you're using the current market price. So like if you're going to move the price 1%, you can't search through all the ticks, because that would be gas infinite, right? So each tick is 1 basis point or 0.01%. So you're not going to search through 100 ticks if you're going to move the price 1% to get an exact amount of what reserves you're going to eat through. So basically, and this is without me looking at I just know they can't read through all these ticks. There's just no way. Because each one would be like 3,000 gas times 100 would be like 300,000 gas. There's just no way. But basically, they're selling at the current market price. So the way that UniV3 works is that if you have a big swap, it's just going to move the price a lot. It's not like a curve. I just will tell you, like, basically, if you have big swaps relative to the amount of liquidity, it doesn't look like a curve. It looks like a stair step, or like, I don't know, all these like straight lines. If you have a bunch of small swaps relative to liquidity, then it looks like a curve. So that's, in my opinion, why you saw that huge dump. I mean, it's just simple math. You sold everything at the market price and you moved the price a lot. So you had a big dump at one point in time. So I will just say AMMs cannot handle that well. They cannot handle big market dumps by design.
That's true, right? Okay, so it's like two, three things, right? So I think one thing is like, let's say there's a big limit order that got placed using Uniswap V3's kind of like mechanism. You can like place limit orders on that.
Uh-huh.
If that was like that was like very big order, right? As opposed to like doing that via an order book. Like there's like comparisons and like pros and cons there. So like, how do you think about that?
So a range order, in order for a range order to execute, the entire pool price has to move to some value. So
Yeah.
basically everybody's acting in unison. There's no time ordering in regards to getting filled. Everybody's filled at once. So it takes forever for you to get filled. You don't get filled instantly. So in the protocol we've designed, you would get filled instantly if you place a limit order. In Uniswap, you cannot, because the entire pool price has to move there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then also you have to have an off-chain system, which is going to watch that range order to be filled and then execute it and close the position. It also costs a lot of gas to do that, because it's going to cost you probably about $1 million gas to do that. Somewhere between 600,000-700,000 and $1 million gas to do that. Plus whatever fee, like Gelato doesn't charge a fee now, but it's Gelato a fee on top of that. And in our system, it would probably cost you somewhere in the ballpark of 100,000 gas.
Got it. Okay. So that's like pretty amazing. I mean, I know you guys are like optimizers and like, okay. So one thing, like, is the code written completely in Yule, and what do you think about using Viper for like writing optimized code as opposed to writing Yule?
So I wrote, because I basically have the solution in my head. Like, I know exactly how it should be built, and like it's not really that hard to build this. In terms of optimizing, because basically a write, if you do 2 reads and 2 writes, that's more expensive than doing 3 reads and
Yeah.
1 write. Sorry, what was? Oh, yes, okay. So I wrote it in Solidity, right? And there's chunks that, if you use blocks of Yule, you'll save like 600 gas. So like I was doing like some hashing, and that was costing like 700 gas, and then I did the same thing in just like a little assembly block, and then it was like 180 gas. So I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, okay. So I can save some decent gas. Yeah. So like, Yule will save something in the ballpark of probably like, if I had to throw a number on it, probably 1 to 2,000 gas. So Yule is like squeezing out that last like 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
And we're also working on a macro system. Like what I did for ETH Prague was I did like Rust style macros. So basically, you could have a Solidity version, like Lego blocks, like I said, and you could have one that's Solidity right next to the Yule version. And so pretty much that's what we plan on doing is having both of those versions and then being able to build the contract kind of like a Lego system. And if you really want to get extreme, because like I guess
Alpha, you there? I can't hear you anymore.
I guess it cut off.
Oh yeah. Okay. Uh, I mean, the system that is describing sounds pretty cool, right? If you could like instantly compare Yule versus Solidity, I'm like more interested in Yule versus Viper because that thing is a little bit unexplored in terms of gas usage on my end. But yeah, sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. But like my next question to my Alpha was going to be like how like what is Pool Sharks optimizing for, right? If you had to say one thing that Pool Sharks is optimizing for, is it uh, like capital efficiency in terms of orders, or is it like fast filling, or like what's the main goal of doing that, right? Is it scalability? How fast can you like I um yeah not sure if it's connected. Maybe his phone died or something. Mother, what time is it there? I guess you must be crawling for some sleep.
I guess like 5:10.
Oh man, oh shit. Kudos to you for staying awake.
I guess Alpha is like his phone is still connected. I don't know, like if he can hear us or not.
Hmm, I think we've been going on for more than an hour. Oh man, okay. It's too many things to talk about. I mean, there's so many interesting topics that we brought up in this conversation. We had talked about stablecoin designs, even when no one was talking. Yeah, stablecoin designs, order books, building in a bear market. Like, should we? Oh, I think he's trying to rejoin. Wait, let's just wait for a couple of minutes. If not, then let's end it for today. I think uh, lots of interesting conversations have been already been shared. Um, uh, just give it another minute. Um, Okay. Yeah. Guys, let's end it for today. Thank you all for joining. I know it's been a too long, it's been a very long conversation, but uh, for all the people in the conversation, thank you for being here. Thank you for the time. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Okay. Take care. Bye, everyone. Bye, guys.